Today on Locked On Rockies, the Cardinals fought back in game 2, but to be totally honest, this is a case where you can say the Rockies did their job.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 23rd day of July in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies, and you can support the show by liking the video, subscribing, and being part of the show by firing off those Locked On Rockies hot takes over on the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. Today on the show, we're going to talk about the Rockies handling business. Again, you can sit and we can say that this is the fact that the Rockies still let them back into this into the game, but this was a situation where you can sit there and say, "Hey, Bradley Blaylock kept the Rockies in this game." The bullpen, yes, it wasn't as perfect as it usually is, and even that is a little bit generous, right? We've seen the bullpen be shaky at times, but key players had big moments. We had Ryan McMahon, big home run. We had Adiel Amador have a huge bottom of the order performance. The Rockies handled business. We previewed this game, and we talked about the Rockies having an opportunity against a pitcher that has been struggling, a pitcher that coming into Coors Field should be a nightmare for him. And that's exactly what the Rockies did, scoring 1 run in the first, 2 runs in the second, 3 runs in the third. Of course, you would like to see some of the other opportunities cashed in, but an 8 spot answering consistently back against the Cardinals throughout this ball game, that's awesome to see. This was a game when you're kind of looking and you're saying, this is the result of the Rockies and these guys having a little bit more playing time, being more comfortable at the major league level, being more comfortable playing, winning baseball. Because this was a game in which, it ebbed and flowed at some certain points there. The Cardinals certainly didn't go away. They didn't go quietly, answering a few times here, but the Rockies being able to answer back, being able to get big moments from certain guys and have a, especially like I put on the overlay here, Amador's big day. That's important. So before we dive into everything, a little overdue from letting you know that today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So my main takeaway here is the Rockies in a situation in which they needed to respond and answer on offense after a game in which they were a little stifled. Back-to-back games at home where the Rockies offense was not clicking like we had seen it as it came out the gate against the Twins there. And the Rockies do just that. And it includes a 3-run home run from Ryan McMahon. It includes arguably Bradley Blaylock's maybe best start of his entire career so far here. And Mickey Moniak staying hot here. And in the questions in the Locked On Rockies comment section, we got RMK asking, is Mickey Moniak looking to be set up to be traded? He's mashing, FYI. I don't know. I guess when you're kind of looking at when you're asking that question of Moniak here, when you're asking the question of the trade deadline for the Rockies, what is the line? You know what I mean? Like for example, I mean, you brought in Moniak there in the offseason. You were able to bring him in there after being waived by the Angels. This is a situation in which certainly maybe if teams are interested, but if you're the Rockies, you're kind of sitting there, and if you're Moniak as well, you're kind of sitting there and saying, hey, despite what the record says, I'm performing here. I'm comfortable here. I'm hitting the ball out of the yard. I'm doing damage at Coors Field. I'm being someone that's being an impact here. I don't necessarily know if the Rockies are looking as much to trade him, but again, it's kind of a question of where is the line? when it comes to the trade deadline? Where is the line when it comes to trading for the Colorado Rockies in this season? I mean, if you're looking at a situation where you get something that you're pretty impressed with Moniak, you might pull that trigger. But I think that there are teams that might be a little hesitant for a guy that's becoming a little bit of a journeyman, and of course has that little bit of twinkle of, is it the Coors Field influence? Is that the big difference driver here? But just wanted to dive into that question because I saw it right before, and of course Mickey Moniak having a good day here. But what I loved about this game is we previewed, and what we said was, this is a pitcher in which you have a situation in which you can jump out ahead and get after this guy. It's a guy that struggled, a guy that was successful against the Rockies in the past, certainly, but the recent struggles of, especially with letting up the long ball and not being as effective in terms of strikeouts and walks, still picking up 5 walks for Fetty there, but the Rockies were able to tag him for a couple of home runs here and get out of front. That's exactly what they needed to do. When a pitcher like that is coming into Coors Field, they're struggling, they're not having what they do, when they are entering a situation in which they're not as sharp, they're not as dominant, where they're just completely avoiding the bats, they're so good at shutting out the offense and eliminating that threat. When they come to Coors, when a pitcher like this is on a run that they're on, you have to do exactly what the Rockies did in game number 2 here. And it's exactly, boom. First inning, tag him for a run. Second inning, hit him again. Constantly put that pressure on him. Constantly make him uncomfortable. Constantly bringing up that pitch count there. The Rockies offense did the plan of attack against Fetty was perfect in this game, including highlighting the fact that if scouts are indeed watching Rockies players here, they're continuing to watch Ryan McMahon here hit 4 home runs in his last 8 games, I believe is what the broadcast mentioned, and make stellar plays at third base. He's continuing that. Ryan McMahon is playing the exact type of baseball that he needs to be playing right now to be putting himself onto a contending team. And I think that's got to be something where, certainly if you're Ryan McMahon, you're maybe considering, and maybe like, oh, it's I want to keep putting all my efforts into this, but you're also putting yourself into that, hey, I need to compete. I need to get myself right, because I'm going to be finding myself in a situation where I'm going to be playing some impactful and meaningful baseball here. And Ryan McMahon is showing that. As critical as I have been of Ryan McMahon this year, and there's no way that I can shy away from my criticisms of being critical of Ryan McMahon in this moment here, especially as it's going right towards up towards the trade deadline here. He is showing off why he can be an impact player for certain teams here. If teams can help him figure out and make him a more consistent batter and make him someone that's more of a consistent threat at the dish, Ryan McMahon can be a very special baseball player. I mean, that ball was blasted. He is a difference maker at third base. He is someone that can be an impact player for your team. Can he be the aircraft carrier? Can he be the main guy? I don't think that's the case. We've kind of seen that over the last couple of seasons. But if you're able to put Ryan McMahon around some really talented guys and build and add on and kind of improve around him, especially in the lineup, I think Ryan McMahon can help teams be a winner. I think he can certainly be in a situation where he is an impact bat. He is an impact threat for this team here, and for what team he ends up on. And he's been a great Rocky. He's been an impactful Rocky. I mean, even with the ups and downs, the hot and the colds, all that type of stuff, you can't sit there and say that Ryan McMahon is not a player that can have an impact on a ball game, have an impact and change the state of the ball game. That was just in this game, right? It was kind of one of those situations where you're saying, like, man, the Rockies could be doing a little bit more. They could be even further out ahead earlier in this ball game. And then when it comes to Ryan McMahon coming up, having a good at bat, I mean, 3-0 swinging, and he's able to blast that ball out of the yard there. And not only that, because this was mentioned on the broadcast as well, the Rockies tied for last place in 3-run home runs, but in that moment, such a key home run in this situation, such a key moment for the Rockies in this game too, to be able to get out ahead and put a sizable lead up there and be able to navigate the bumps here. Again, we know that Blaylock has had some issues here, especially at home, but and still had some stuff, but at the same time, you can navigate the 8-hit, 2-earned run performance from Blaylock when you have the lead that the Rockies create. When you're able to bounce back and answer back a couple of times throughout the ball game, scoring in the 5th and in the 8th, there negating some of the runs that the Cardinals put on, because the Rockies and the Cardinals tying for hits in this ball game. When you're able to answer back like that, when you're able to be someone that is able to have, or when you're able to keep yourselves ahead, keep that padding of the lead, you're just making it a little bit easier for you, not only for your pitching staff. Because again, there were some issues there, of course. Agnos allowing an earned run with 2 walks there on the hits there. It wasn't the perfect stuff for Agnos, Vodnik, and Halverson. There was some stuff there, but when you're able to pad up and have that offense there, you're setting yourself up for a good situation and some great fielding as well. The Rockies getting an insane play from Brenton Doyle in center field for a double play and able to get Nolan Arenado trying to stretch things out. This was a game that the Rockies played that you thought that they could do more consistently in 2025. This was a game that kind of looked like what we expected for the team in 2025. Now it's a question of doing it again and answering back and getting after them in the day game here and securing yourself the best home series, the homestand of the year. Win this series, win back-to-back series. I believe this. If the Rockies win back-to-back series, it would be the first time in the season here. Get your first home series win, get those back-to-back series wins, and continue to make the narrative very interesting for these teams heading into the trade deadline, as we might be watching the last time Nolan Arenado is playing the Colorado Rockies in a Cardinal uniform, as that era could be coming to a close. And Arenado talked about the past with the Rockies a little bit with the Denver Post. We're going to get to that and more coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. When you use Monarch, you're able to figure out the little things, and it's amazing how quickly the little things add up. Streaming services, delivery, you name it. Those things add up, and when you notice and you track that, you can see just how much you're spending and the adjustments you need to make in order to save more money. Plus, Monarch makes it easier to share those finances with someone and keep yourselves on the same page and organize those financial goals so it's all on the same place, so you're working together to make sure you are reaching where you want to be. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk. A little bit quieter today as I'm recording a little bit late, and I got to obey the quiet hours of my apartment complex here. So if you're wondering why the tone of voice might be a little bit more subdued today, then there's your answer for that here. But again, I think with this game and just kind of bringing it back to how I was closing it out is it's just like this. These are the type of the games that I expected the Rockies to play. Far from perfect, right? The Rockies still gave up 11 hits. The Rockies still struck out a good decent amount in this ball game here. The Rockies striking out 13 times as a team in this. It's far from perfect, right? But you're able to drive in the runs. You're getting the clutch hitting in, and we'd be remiss without saying that this was one of Amador's best days. The Rockies getting production from the 9-hole in their lineup, from a young guy being called up here. That's exactly the type of stuff you're trying to look for here as you're looking at going through the second half of the season here. Young guys being impacts for the Colorado Rockies. And it was great to see again for Brenton Doyle to have a 3-hit day. And here's the deal. The 2 of those hits were choppers on the infield. But guess what? Brenton Doyle's gone through a season of being unlucky and stuff like that. So it's time for him to be rewarded for putting the ball in play, being aggressive, being someone now that is getting a little bit more comfortable. As we mentioned, dropping him in the lineup. It's so much more important for him to be in that position in the lineup where he's comfortable and able to have an impact there. Mickey Moniak driving in a couple of runs as he continues his hot streak. These are the type of games. This is the type of stuff at Coors Field that I was expecting more of in 2025. 8-4. Again, far from perfect. Runs still scored. The Cardinals were facing opportunities. The Cardinals were getting timely walks. The Cardinals were showing, having professional at bats in this one, but they were able to outlast them because they were using the strengths of Coors Field, using the strengths of what they're able to do in their lineup, being a team, getting key extra base hits, hitting the ball out of the yard, being more comfortable and confident at Coors Field. These are the type of things, and these are the types of games that we expected to see from the Colorado Rockies. And it's great to see when things are highlighted at the bottom of the order from Ariel Amador. I mean, this is one of the best games that we've seen him play when he's able to come out here and go 2 for 3 with a walk in that as well, getting on base at least 3 times there, being effective there. It has to strike out, and certainly still something to look at, but driving in some runs, 2 outs, 2 strikes, impact at bats here from the bottom of the order, especially when you're looking at the fact that Michael Toglia continues to strike out and strike out and strike out. I mean, I got to tell you, when we're talking about the frustrating stuff, it is very frustrating to watch Michael Toglia at the dish. It's not the first time that I've brought this up. It's not the last time that I'm going to bring this up. This is the type of stuff, though, when you're talking about stuff that really agitates you and stuff that's very frustrating to watch this season, it continues to be Michael Toglia striking out in big situations. Michael Toglia looking uncompetitive and at bats, waving at things, missing at things. You heard on the broadcast here in this game talking about the Rockies' inability not only to bring runners in, but their struggles with swinging and missing at balls in the strike zone. It's one thing to whiff, it's one thing to chase, as they were mentioning on the broadcast, but it's another thing to be as bad as the Colorado Rockies are at swinging and missing at pitches in the zone. Michael Toglia needs to be an impact bat, and he needs to start developing his batter eye. It is just flat out unacceptable for his hitter profile for him to be swinging and missing and having as many uncompetitive at bats as he does. And I'm glad this should be the result. He needs to continue to be batting at the bottom of the order. The Rockies can't be putting him in positions where he's going to be driving in runs when you have your Goodmans, you have your Becks, and you have McMahon hitting the way he is. Tovar, a couple of Ks tonight, but getting another extra base hit. There's far too many better options for the Colorado Rockies to be putting there in the middle of the order. So I'm not surprised to see Michael Toglia drop in the order here. And this is, again, I hate to be so strict on it, but it's just the rate. This is a problem. The Michael Toglia at bats, when they're as wasted, when they're as unproductive, when he's down 0-2 so quickly, that's a huge problem. And this is something that the Rockies have not been able to figure out. Whereas they've had some guys strikeout problems as they made, they've been able to cut things down. The rate and in the situations that Michael Toglia strikes out, it continues to be unacceptable. So this is going to be something that the pressure is going to be continued to be on Michael Toglia for the rest of the season, to be having better, more productive at bats and show that he can be an impactful first baseman at the major league level. The defense is one thing. They're certainly you feel better about the defense there of Toglia, but when you're looking at it, it's a frustrating watch at the dish. But it's kind of it kind of gets washed away a little bit when the guy behind him is a young guy that you're looking for big moments for, and Amador has a big game. Amador has his big moments. Amador sets the tone for the Rockies in the second inning there when they're looking at a situation where it's like, oh man, here we go. They're starting to build momentum, but they're not able to cash in with in a clutch situation. And Amador is able to hit a 2-out double and drive in both of those runs. Exactly what the Rockies needed to do. Those first 3 innings were so critical for the Rockies in this one, being able to set that tone, to be able to score and then keep increasing that score and build that 6-0 lead early, because you're able to navigate the rest of the ball games, the ups and downs of what can happen, letting in a couple of runs, getting a couple of runs on your end. This was an overall an enjoyable, and I would say one of the more enjoyable Rockies games of the season, even with some of those moments where you're kind of pulling on your collar a little bit and you're not liking the walks, you're not liking the fact that the Cardinals are driving in runs and building up some momentum. That's going to happen. That's the ebbs and flows of baseball, especially at altitude there. But this was a game in which the Rockies were able to keep their cool, keep their momentum, momentum and hang in throughout there's certainly some frustrating moments, certainly some frustrating issues, but this was a nice way. Again, it split you split the series so far. You got the day game. Now you got to keep that aggression up, mimic that offense, and end this home standoff on a strong note and set this off as a really good start when you're talking about in the context of the 2025 Rockies to the second half of the season. All right, let's look ahead to the finale here. And of course, Nolan Arenado was speaking about the past with the Colorado Rockies. We got to talk a little bit about that coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? No, you called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale your customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. And that's cool because that means no more who's handling this. Your team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. You don't got to juggle 2 phone lines. You can keep that business and personal calls separate. OpenPhone solves that instantly, and the AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Rockies listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone's going to port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, bringing you to a close for your Wednesday edition of the Locked On Rockies, celebrating, of course, a nice Rockies win, feeling good about that. Of course, a lot of things I really liked about this. Again, we saw good defense in this game. We saw good offense from this game. The pitching staff hung in there. It wasn't perfect from the pitching staff, but kept you in there, limited the damage. This was a game in which the Rockies were showing off some of their strengths, showing off a little bit of the way that they've grown as a baseball team through this struggle. Now you got to replicate it. You got to get this series win as well for you to really be able to feel good about this and feel good about this homestand and feel good about going into the second half of the season. But the other news that we want to talk about here before we preview the finale and remind you that we are going for a crossover episode with Locked On Cardinals, recapping the series coming up for your Thursday edition of the Locked On Rockies podcast. Nolan Arenado speaking with the Denver Post, reflecting on the 2018 team and basically saying that the same thing that a lot of us are saying, the what ifs, and reflecting on the fact that was a moment of time of special Rockies baseball. When Arenado in the piece talks about Story, talks about DJ, talks about how they've talked about this before, and being especially frustrated with the trade deadline of that year. That is such a key moment in Rockies history. And you know what's interesting about this piece as well was the fact that we give Ian Desmond grief, right? We would talk about how bad the Ian Desmond situation was in the end, and the underperformance of Desmond. But then when you compare him for what the Rockies are getting, you would take Ian Desmond. I promise you. You would take what Ian Desmond gave you in that season for production at first base for the Rockies, especially in recent seasons. I promise you. But my main takeaway of this is it just kind of goes back to that thing where in another universe, in another world, they are the Rockies embrace what they had, embrace what they built, believed in it, bought into it, traded aggressively at the deadline, making the moves, buying into, going all in for what it takes to win a championship. I don't think Arenado's that crazy when he's talking about the fact of how close that team was. That team was special. That team had a chance at the division. That team had a chance at improving at the trade deadline, getting better. The team had the right vibes. The team was getting the right performances from the right guys at the right time. It just took better preparedness and willingness from the top. It took that's what's so tough about even going through and navigating this rebuild and talking about the future is the Rockies built something. The Rockies created a playoff caliber team. The Rockies created a team that could win the National League West. The Rockies had a dominant infield. The Rockies had a team that was competing with the best of them and a team that could make a run. Sure, you can point there and say it didn't pan out in the playoffs, but that was because it was a team that they didn't aggressively add to, a team that they made the risk, took the risks at the trade deadline, risked this future, because we're talking about the prospects and the situations in which the Rockies are at right now. And if they had taken a risk and gambled on that and bought into that, who knows what it could have been? Because now you're sitting there and saying and asking what if and what could have been and this and that, and looking and trying to think about what all went wrong and things like that, instead of actually saying like, hey, the Rockies went for it. And that's what's unfortunate about that 2018 team and the playoff teams and that era of Rockies baseball is we didn't get to see the Rockies have their Nuggets moment where they knew they had the guy. They knew they had the moment. They knew they had the opportunity. They knew they had the window. And say what you will about the Nuggets the past couple of years, certainly, and that, but the Nuggets got the job done. The Nuggets did what they had to do to get the job done. The Avalanche did what they needed to do to get the job done, to get titles. The Broncos did what they needed to do to get a title. The Mammoth did what they needed to do to get a title. The Rapids did what they needed to do to get a title. DU did what they needed to do to get a title. We have yet to see the Rockies do what they need to do to get a title. And that 2018 team and that moment in Rockies history will go down as their best opportunity their most missed opportunity to do that. When you're talking about prime Arenado, when you're talking about prime Story, when you're talking about prime DJ, when you're talking about prime Chuck Nasty, when you're talking about prime Freeland, talking about prime Herman Marquez, prime of all contributors, all guys that have had seasons and have had moments where they have had impacts and been great players for the Colorado Rockies. So when I see this and when I read this and when I hear this about Arenado, I know for a fact that at his core, down at the bottom, at the pit of his stomach, no matter what you want to say, and this is maybe me just putting the Homer hat on. This is the Holden Homer hat, the Paul Rockies Homer hat. We're going Homer here. That's what tells me that he wanted to fully buy in and believe in what the Rockies were doing, and he was betrayed by the team. Because he knows if that team was aggressive at the right moments, if they knew that this team was aggressive at the right moments, if this team honored what they said and told him that they were going to do, Nolan Arenado would still be a member of the Colorado Rockies, and you would happily take the career that Nolan Arenado has continued to have, and even the player that he is today at third base. And if you don't, I disagree with you. I disagree with you. Because the Rockies were in a situation in which they could have really embraced what it took to be a champion, really bought in and say, we need to address and buy in and fix our weaknesses, invest in it now, capture and take advantage of this moment, take advantage of this window, and get the job done. But they weren't willing to do that. They weren't willing to be they weren't willing to take the risks that they needed to take. And instead, they took the easy way out, which was trading Nolan Arenado, punting, moving on, and now setting up what we've been experiencing since those years, which is 7 straight losing seasons and 3 100-loss seasons in a row. And again, it's another situation is we have to move on, right? As Rockies fans, certainly we have to move on. But when you read those pieces, when you think about the fact that Arenado is focusing in and looking on it and reflecting on the fact that he knew how good that team was, how good the vibes were, where they were at as a team, the energy, the flow, the everything. And then to just know that the trade deadline is the thing that sticks with him and maybe others as well as a defining moment. because this team couldn't be aggressive, couldn't go after the rentals, couldn't get out of its own way, and couldn't do something differently in order to go after a championship when they were in contention for their first ever division title. That irks me. That irks me. And it irks him too. And it irks. I think there are a lot of guys, again, you can say they've moved on, different parts of their career, different parts of their life. They had the pride in being the Rockies and being the difference makers and being the players that were doing something different for the Rockies. But the organization as a whole wasn't ready for that. Wasn't ready to back them up. The Rockies going after another pitcher here in the finale here, a situation, 14 home runs for Palante here, 105 innings pitched, allowed 107 hits in that time, 67 strikeouts to 34 walks. This is another situation where you're the Rockies here and you're saying it's go time. Undecided on the pitcher there, but be checking your Rockies media members there to see who's going to be pitching. There's a lot of changes with the Rockies pitcher there, with German Marquez having the bicep tendonitis there that the Rockies are going to be navigating, especially coming up towards the trade deadline. We'll talk a little bit about that coming forward as well. But folks, as the hiccups are attacking me here, we're going to wrap things up for the Locked On Rockies podcast for today. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. And for your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB and Locked On MLB Game Night, giving you action from around the world of Major League Baseball. And of course, we got you covered when it comes to Colorado sports. Locked On Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, and Buffs, all free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.